Okay, welcome to another episode of Clydesdale University. For those of you in the United States and Canada, you might have been to the National Clydesdale sale this past weekend. Um, for those of you internationally, you can watch that on the Clydesdale Breeder of the United States website, both the sale and the preview. You can kind of get an idea of some of the horses and different things that were happening and some of the prices. So I have, a few reflections myself from the sale that I kind of wanted to touch upon, and for those of you that attended, you can kind of start to think about what you saw at the sale and how it kind of matched up some things that I would like to cover. So one of the first things that I want to talk about, is that good quality horses and the right type doesn't really go out of fashion. There's lots of talk about, a hitch horse and a hitch mare and a prospect or a riding prospect or a pleasure prospect or a halter horse or a breeding horse. And really all of these horses are the same type of horse. There's one real type of Clydesdale, and that's, I would say, the right type. Then there's others that are kind of marketing ploys as we go forward. So the right type, right, depth of body, you know, size, scale, good bone, good length and turn of neck, right? They breed together and they propagate more of them ideally. Sometimes that doesn't always happen. Genetics can be a tricky thing to do, but as long as we start with the right type, we can usually count on getting more of the right type as time goes by. And if these horses don't click together, you can take them to different ones that might. But at least you're starting with the fundamental base to get somewhere. So one of the horses that sold for quite a bit of money, um, a good gelding, good headset, good depth of body, good motion as well, good feet on him, was a horse called Willoway, Utah. But he didn't come from just, hi, welcome. We'll share my screen here. And we'll get started. So, another episode of Clydesdale University. I attended the National Clydesdale sale, and I think that a few of you that are in North America and Canada did as well. For you, those of you that are not from North America, you can watch the sale preview and some of the horses that went through on the Clydesdale Breeders of the United States Facebook. There's lots of videos, lots of photos, lots of things like that to kind of get an eye of what I'm going to be talking about going forward. Um, some of my observations and some things that I really want to touch on for new breeders. So, the first thing that I want to talk about is that the right type doesn't go out of fashion. We have a lot of different people that are talking about a hitch type, a hitch mare, a gelding, um, a riding type, a pleasure type, a halter type, a breeding horse type. Well, there's really only one type of horse, and that's the right type. The rest are kind of all variants of that, and the right type doesn't go on a fashion. The right type usually produces more of the right kind. Right, we see a mare and a stallion like this, right? Beautiful turn of neck, good length of neck, good shoulder, great depth of body, tremendous rear, right? Good bone, flat, feet, ankles, all of these things that we've been talking about before, right? If these two cross up, they produce something like this. That's kind of the goal, some more good ones. If these two don't nick, at least you have some base to work with to try to find other ones that might. Breeding is always a challenge. There's always a lot of guesswork. It's simply not as easy as breeding the best of the best. You have to kind of have a little bit of luck and some patience and be willing to try different things. But as long as you work with good ones, you'll produce more good ones. So a popular horse that went through the sale was a horse named Willoway, Utah. Tremendously good driving horse, also very sound, good footed, good ankles, good depth of body. But, right, there's a long line of these so-called halter horses or show horses that produced this driving gelding, right? So we have, of course, the famous Eight in Perfection, Tremendous Sire, both here and abroad. The Irish Queen Mare goes back to that horse that we just saw, Dura Sensation, that stallion. We have Green Eggs Pioneer, Calder Cup winner, the tremendous mare Excelsier's Isabel, Dura Excelsior daughter, going back to the tremendous Croydon Judy family of mares with Croydon Isabel. A lot of good things behind them. The Zerugit Venture is a Hillmore Fusilier son, good show horse himself. The Loves Mare goes back to Solomon's Paulette. So if you were at the National Clydesdale sale, the Remus family were inducted in the Hall of Fame. One of their good mares was a big weighty mare named Solomon's Paulette. Of course, Live Oak Omega, kind of an all-star from the Douglas brothers, good mare, Dura Douglas Delight. Also an Eight in Perfection son. Willoway Gabriel, high quality mare, Canadian bred champion at Toronto. She goes back to Taurus Cup winner, and then her line of mares go back to a big weighty mare called Taurus Lady Aintrim that was imported. Good line of mares. So, right, these we need to kind of keep breeding on to get to this, right? There might be some hiccups along the way, but we need a good depth of pedigree and a good, focus to try to move forward. And these aren't horses that are just bred for a single trait. That's what the Perchons and Belgians have been doing lately. And they've got themselves into a world of trouble with losing foot, bone, quality, soundness, all these other things for single trait selection. So just to kind of take a look back, here is that Croydon Isabel mare that helped produce that gelding, right? Tremendous rear end on this horse, right? That's what kind of drives the horse forward. So if we're losing that, we're really losing that front drive, right? This kind of hind end just kind of paddles along and is along for the ride. Good turn of the neck, right? But great depth of body, great width over the hips, right? Nice shape of hock, good bone, good feet, all these kind of things that are important. Eddie Arnold was lived to be over 100 years old, a great passionate person for the Clydesdale breed. Didn't have tons and tons of horses, but bred lots and lots of good ones that kept breeding on today. When that kind of quality is there is a lasting effect that can happen through the ages. So great benefit to the breed, but these are the type that kind of create the ones of today that can sell for $55,000. So let's talk about some trends and things that I saw at the National Clydesdale sale that I want to kind of touch on, things to avoid. So there was a lot of, quote, hitch horses, especially hitch mares, that kind of had a head that looks like it was stuck on. And what I mean about that is kind of a straight out kind of neck, not an attractive curve to the neck, even, convex, in a way, right? Kind of U-necked almost, right? This kind of, and the head just kind of looks like it was just plopped on, just kind of set, just kind of plumped onto a post, right? Not really attractive because as these horses move forward, right, they stick their noses up in the air. There's really no bend or flexibility to the neck, and things get unattractive fast. Here's another one, right? Just kind of, there's no real bend or turn to that pole, no real kind of, it just kind of straight nose out. Here we have one, same thing, right? And kind of really almost getting to U-necked right here where this neck is here. There's not much flexibility over the pole, not particularly attractive through the throat latch, right? Just kind of a stuck-on head. A mare from Scotland that's kind of doing the same thing. Very big triangular coarse head, coarse jaw, coarse throat latch, right? Real no turn, just kind of short, straight shove. That shoulder is really uh, coarse. It's really not where it should be back here. It's kind of a big, heavy, round shoulder, and that's kind of correlating with some of this, like getting a little bit too round boned, right? A little too heavy boned. You'll hear some people kind of go on and on about bone, bone, bone. Well, it's got to be the right kind of bone. It's got to be flat, flinty, clean bone. Round, coarse bone equals a horse that just doesn't have any flexibility in its movement, right? Short ankles as well, right? We always want to try to get length of pastern there because that equals the motion, the flexibility moving forward. If we don't have that, we start to kind of lose a lot of other things as we continue on. And we get to a horse like this, right? This is kind of just compounding a lot of things over and over that just aren't working great. So we got a horse with a short neck, kind of getting towards that U neck, right? Not very clean, kind of just a stuck on head, thin, light through here, light through here. We're getting light here. That hock's not very attractive. It's not very, sharp. That foot's not very big, right? That rump is pretty steep, right? We're just kind of compounding average, and then we kind of get a lot of worse for wear. All of these type of horses that are just kind of these very, very plain type horses, people might say, oh, they're a riding horse, they're a pleasure horse, right? There's a horse for everybody. But propagating this type isn't going to do the breed any favors. Not to say that you can't try to get something better out of this type of horse, but often you're just wasting a lot of time. And for a horse like this to be a stallion, there's better options out there. So let's look at some, headsets that are more ideal, right? We have this mare here, senior champion at the World Clydesdale show, attractive turn to the neck, attractive throat latch, right? She's got some size, she's got some depth of body, but that curvature of the neck is quite attractive in the way that it's coming out. Now, she raises another daughter called Anderson's Anita that goes on to win the world show the last go round in North America at Brandon. So, right, attractive neck sets and things like this kind of keep in style and keep in fashion. This would be considered a halter horse, right? And her daughter too. But this is the kind that make all sorts of horses for the industry that are more correct. Another one from Scotland, right? She's in her winter hair, but a little bit more bone to her. But again, that neck is coming out nice and clean and attractive, and she's got that bend to the pole and that flexibility here that kind of makes an attractive horse going forward. A mare that goes back to that Solomon's Asti mare, a daughter of that Paulette, tremendous fronted mare. And she made some daughters that have the same kind of attractive neck, right? They're nice curvature to their neck, nice kind of flexibility in the pole, nice throat latch, but also we're not losing a lot of depth of body here. Good ankles as well. We're trying to keep that moving forward. Uh, a show mare, a daughter of Fillmore Fusilier, nice kind of curve to the neck. You could maybe want to see it coming out a little higher, but good serviceable neck. But we're not losing everything else, right? We have the depth of body, right? We have the rear to kind of drive a horse forward. We have this nice, clean, sharp gaskin that connects to a hock, good pasterns, good feet, good quality of bone, right? So you can take this mare to a horse that maybe has more presence in the neck, and you're gaining, but not going backwards, hopefully. Dayton Miranda here. Again, mother had a tremendous headset. I'll have to dig up some photos of the mother, right? The way that she's standing, it makes her like maybe look a little bit shorter, but she's got a tremendous curve and flexibility to that pole, right? Beautiful through her throat latch, clean. That shoulder is here, right? And that neck's coming up nice and neat. It's not coming out of the base of the shoulder, kind of making this thick, heavy neck. But again, we're also nice short back, nice rear, nice depth of body, good gaskin, good bone, good set of ankles on her, good hair, right? There's all these kind of things that are adding adding to the full picture uh, without losing everything just to focus on the neck, right? We're getting the full balance that are adding to it. And this has always kind of been the prerogative of Clydesdale horses. Here we have Craigie Litigant, right? A son of Baron of Bulkaivy, the famous stallion that sold for a lot of money. He sold for a lot of money because he raised colts like this. Uh, Litigant won the Clutter Cup. So this is like, early 1900s, and this is the type that is in fashion and favorable. Good curve to the neck, right? Good length, good curve, right? But, short, tidy back, great rear, right? And great depth of body. He's sitting on nice ankles, right? He's got big feet. He's not overly coarse. He's not overly round boned, right? We're not wanting massively heavy boned on these horses in the past, right? Just nice, clean, sharp bone was in style, and it still is today. Here's a horse that I think most breeders would give their eye teeth for right now. We're looking at a horse that has, beautiful curvature to the neck, right? Good depth of body, good spring of rib, great rear, right? Nice, high, short uh, gaskins, right? Good width of bone on good kind of feet with great ankles, right? Masculine, but still attractive, right? There's a good throat latch there. There's a lot of flexibility over that pole, right? There's a nice turn to his head. As he moves out, he's going to carry his neck up and straight, but he's going to, the nose is pointed down. It's not pointed up in the air. These are kind of things that are valuable. This is the Johnson's Aristocrat horse, tremendous typed horse that did some good both in the Shire and Clydesdale breed. Another one that's related to him here, the Johnson's Realization horse. Again, tremendous neck to him, great curvature, flexibility over that pole, right? He's going to be holding it in this attractive way as he moves forward with that nose pointed where it should be, more towards the ground, not up in the air. Good shoulder, but great mass of body, right? Great width here, tremendous here, and good, clean, flat bone, good ankles, good feet. We don't want, this heavy, round, Brabant type bone, right? We want nice, clean, flat, hard bone. Famous purveyor of geldings, dealer, trader, was Irving Holiday of Clifton Hall Farm. Always had geldings for sale, supplied Budweiser with a lot of their early hitch, and everybody else. Just always hunting and working with guys to find good, weighty geldings. And here we have one, right? Attractive neck. He's going to be wearing, this is how he's going to move out in the hitch, right? With his head up, this flexibility, right? Nice, clean through the throat latch, right? Neck not ewe-necked, but also, this tremendous body that this horse has, right? He's got, you know, he is a draft horse. There's no trending towards a commercial type or a carriage horse type. We have a draft horse with great heart girth, great kidney girth, right? Tremendous rear end, nice kind of in the gaskins, good bone, good feet, good pasterns, right? He's going to be flexible. He's going to move out. We can see the way that he's made that he's going to be able to do those things. But these are the kind of geldings that come from those kind of stallions and mares that have that quality, right? This horse himself, Clifton, is going to wear on. As he goes forward, he's going to keep winning, and he gets exported, and he keeps going until an older age. He's built to take that kind of wear and tear on the hitch driving ring, right? That's his body is capable of handling that, the way that he's made. Here we have another historical horse, super important for the breed, a black horse, Dunshire footprint. You know, again, nice tidy back. We got a good depth. This is him as a 2-year old, and we have, this beautiful kind of curvature to the neck, nice and flexible, right? It's coming out. It's not coming out at the base of of his chest, right? It's coming up nice and high in a nice, clean, and attractive way. So let's go back and kind of look at some of these other ones just to reiterate the point here. So, right, we have a horse that, right, it's kind of coming off a little bit lower, but that neck is moving towards that U neck look, right? That shoulder is not exceptionally attractive. That there's no real kind of pretty curvature across. It's straight. It's kind of going more convex, right? The head's just kind of plunked on. Longer back, right? Narrower through this kidney, kind of longer over here, right? There's not as much fill, not as much size, not as much power back here. We hear a lot of talk about power, but really we need some muscle mass to talk about that and some width across the hip, right? Not necessarily attractive in the limbs either. Uh, Kind of round, kind of light, kind of coarse, all at the same time. Uh, so when we start to kind of compound this, we kind of get more of these and we start to kind of slide backwards from the ideal type that we saw in the past, right? You know, where we see the other ones coming up with that kind of that shoulder and that neck coming up a little bit higher, right? We're seeing horses like this with a little bit lower connection when they're moving out on the move, right? Their noses are up. They're kind of, some people will call that snouts up. You'll sometimes hear people where they think that they look kind of like show pigs where they're running around with their noses up in the air. Not particularly attractive, not really what the breed was designed to look like either. And then we get to the kind of penultimate of that, right? This kind of U-necked, kind of just plunked on uh, kind of look. Much, much different than, the more ideal necks that we see here, especially in a horse like this, right? With this beautiful kind of curvature to the neck. So as breeders, we're only down to about 90 or well, no, 79-ish foals registered, pretty low number. That means that things have to like be taken fairly seriously about what we're doing when we're mating horses. We need more of this type and trying to get back to this type because that's the type that can keep producing horses that breed on well, that uh, are sound and serviceable as they age, right? They they just are the more ideal in all manners of their keeping versus the kind of average plain compounded horse, that just is kind of this type of horse, right? We make more of these. It's really hard to kind of get the big weighty horses. It's impossible to get the big weighty horses out of this type of horse, right? So this type of horse might be marketed as a pleasure horse, or there's a horse for everybody. There's this type of horse, that type of horse. But the long and short of it is this is a stallion. We need to have a higher grade of what we're looking for in a stallion and what we expect out of a stallion, right? If this is a mare, it's going to be very, very difficult to get good weighty horses out of her. So, what do we need to be focusing our money on? What do we need to be focusing our time on? We need to try to always kind of get back to these type of, weighty type horses, right? That can produce the horses in the future that will need to keep our breed sound and serviceable, right? You'll spend your entire life trying to upgrade something into this, and not have much uh, luck unless there's some good foundations for you to go forward. Not every horse is going to be perfect, right? Breeding is not particularly easy. There's a lot of people that think it is, right? Oh, just match this to this and then it's going to pop out. Well, a lot of people have been proved wrong in that. But as we need all hands on deck, right? Like we do need people that are going to start to keep one, two, three good quality mares hunt for some good colts that can be put to those mares to make a difference, right? There were some genetics that were floating to the sale that were pretty useful. Um, but looking back on those pedigrees, right? Becoming familiar with what's behind, right? We got to look at that pedigree to see what's behind, what's going forward. Are things working? Are we going forward or backwards, right? Because every played horse also goes back to some decent horses as well. Things that didn't nick up quite right as we go forward. So I want anybody with any questions about thinking about, well, can I breed a horse with not very good hocks, like to something? Well, those not very good hocks, unless it was like a feeding issue or something like that, which could happen, which we'll talk about a little bit in the next episodes. But avoid that, right? That's always going to be something that plagues you for the rest of your breeding life. One set of boggy hawks tends to multiply through the generations, and then you have nothing but a field full of them. So start to kind of look at those horses, get a critical eye, match them to that ideal type. And you're going to have to go back to some of these great ones in the past, because they're a little bit in short supply nowadays. We're going through the sale, we're not seeing ones that look like Irish Queen or Excelsior's Isabel, right? Big, useful type mares. Maybe not super huge, but good body typed mares, right? Good legged mares. These are important things that we need to focus on going forward, right? So, where are you going to put your time and your effort in your breeding endeavors when we're only at 70 some foals and we really need to keep making better ones, right? Uh, so, just kind of reflect a little bit on that. And we'll have a few more episodes about how to take, I think in the next one, how to take some photos, right? So we can actually evaluate horses fairly, because a terrible photo will really spoil a horse quickly. Um, then we'll move on to kind of some care, some management, how we're dealing with brood mares, how we're dealing with our stallion herds, vitamins, minerals, all that kind of stuff. We spent some time on type, so hopefully that this has been useful to kind of think about type. If you have any questions or anything like that you've seen, horses you've seen, things that you were curious about, things you might be afraid to ask about in a public setting, uh, feel free to send me a message on here. I will kind of give you my opinion. It's not gospel, but just kind of what I see in horses. And I think Monty will do the same, and the Gradecos as well. So feel free to kind of reach out to those folks. But again, thinking about what we need to do with that strength to kind of carry us forward. Like how is this Clydesdale breed going to survive 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now? Are we going to have enough good serviceable horses to continue on? Like that's the job for us today, right? Trying to make us the best ones that we can uh, to carry on forward. So hopefully you enjoyed it. It was good meeting some of you at the sale. If you have any questions and comments, please let me know. And we will see you later.